I always had a team name I wanted to use that was called With a Perfect 180. Welcome to Cue the Mic. I'm Darren Worth.
And I'm Randy Twyford.
And I'm Emma Derflinger, and this is episode 44.
Wow.
We did it. That was pretty nice, guys.
Yeah.
That was... I thought Randy was maybe going to. I thought maybe Randy was going to do the old. I'm Randy Twyford and the lovely and talented Emma Derflinger.
Aw.
No, because I'd mess up.
He normally just says the associate.
The associate. Says, yeah.
Well, it's fine. No, I liked that. That was good.
Well, I'm coming to you from rainy Florida. 65 degrees, but you got to have a rain day every once in a while. Finally, in the last week, the weather turned off to be absolutely gorgeous until today. But we're going home tomorrow. We got work to do, so we're going home tomorrow. So it can rain.
Well, better than where I'm at with it. It's finally got up out of the 20s and snow up your ass. So,
really,
yeah.
We got snow there in Des Moines.
7 inches of snow.
We had like a weird pop-up little snow thing on Friday, but most of it is melted since then. And it's going to be like 50-some degrees today.
Oh, okay, good. Get all that shit melted by the time I get home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, so what have you been up to, Darren?
Well, since last week, more and more contractors, if you ever build a house, you'll know that we moved in and it's just been chaos trying to fix things, just little crap that we're finding once you move in. So we've had contractors in and out of this house. I feel like it's almost like a Chinese whorehouse coming in and out the door, just a revolving door.
And guess who's getting the screw in OD?
Stop.
They're all there to work, but by God, just go ahead and leave your checkbook out on the counter because they want their money when they walk out the door.
Oh, they want paid. It's no bill and send you an invoice.
No, not most of them. So anyway, it's fine. We get here I can turn the camera here. We got the new outdoor kitchen is going in.
Oh,
that's a beautiful. There you go.
We're pretty excited about that. We didn't think that was going to get started until we came back to Iowa, but now I got my cords all screwed up. I knew I shouldn't have did that.
I'm getting dizzy.
Everybody's getting dizzy. So anyway, I got the outdoor kitchen going. So they got the tile put up, and I think the granite or quartz countertop or whatever the hell, I don't know. You have to talk to my wife. Whatever's going in, hopefully next week, and then we start flopping in all the equipment.
But progress keeps going even though you're gone.
Yeah, oh yeah, progress. I was going to hold them off until we were gone just so they weren't in the way.
Right.
But I'm like, you know what? You got a place in your schedule. Come on. So I left to go cook barbecue on Friday morning early, and Sherry thought she was going to have a nice full day at the pool all by herself. It was 85 degrees, going to be beautiful. Well, I had 3 contractors scheduled throughout the day to show up. Well, luckily I'm driving on the way to the barbecue contest, and all 3 of them called me and said, hey, can we just knock this out this morning about 9:00? And I'm like, yeah, get on it. So all 3 of them showed up and started doing their thing. We had a lawn guy, something else. We had a gas line, whatever, just a bunch of shit going on, fixing stuff, or putting stuff in. And so she calls me at 10:00 and she goes, damn, I'm done for the day. This is awesome. And then as we're on the phone, the propane gas guy showed up to run the lines for the outdoor kitchen. And so he was only there about an hour, got all the gas lines ran. And as soon as he got that done, then the guys that weren't supposed to show up to work on the outdoor kitchen decided they were going to work on Friday and showed up to do the outdoor kitchen. So her whole day of laying in the sun in the pool was ruined, because Sherry wasn't going to sit out there in the pool while these guys were working, even though, You hear the term pool boys. Oh my God. The two kids that are working on the outdoor kitchen,
Right.
they're like 22 and built like brick shit houses and walking around in short shorts and drinking their gallons of water. And
boy.
Oh yeah. She was enjoying the progress, let's say.
Sure.
Even though they were younger than her own daughter, but they were pretty hot for kids. They were built. Oh, they were. But
can't say that. Can't say that. Pretty hot for kids.
Say whatever I want.
That is weird. No, that's weird.
Well, they're kids. But anyway, so, but they didn't know the basic ABCs of electricity. They're running this big power drill, right?
Uh-huh.
And they decide, or this big power, I don't know what the hell they were doing, cut and drill, whatever. So they're out and they go ahead and they plug it in to the same outlet the hot water heater was plugged into.
Yikes.
On the outside of the house. And I'm like, and then they instantly blow the breaker. Hey, we think we blew a breaker. So I trip the breaker back on. And then they trip the breaker again. I'm like, you guys ever figure out that amps, if that thing pulls 15 amps and this thing pulls 10 amps, that that you can't put that on the same circuit? So we finally had a little electricity lesson with them, but boy, they were pretty though.
They got
Sherry enjoyed it.
Oh, the guys were pretty.
Yeah, the guys were pretty. Yeah, the outdoor kitchen, very meticulous kids too, though. Really, really nice work. Very impressed.
Good. Be exciting to see it when it's done.
So far. Yeah, I'm excited to cook on it. I'm so excited to just, of course, the builder that's building it, like, wow, we want to showcase this thing because we went all out. I mean, if we're going to cook outside, we're going to cook outside. So I got more money invested in my outdoor kitchen than I got invested in my indoor kitchen.
Yeah, but you're going to use it a lot
it'll
more.
We'll use the shit out of it. And it's got 1, 2, 3 room for 4 or 5 bar stools, Randy. So while I'm cooking, there's plenty of room to perch up on the bar and watch oversee the cooking. So.
Supervise.
Yeah.
Supervise.
You can supervise. Maybe I'll get one of them chef's hat and do that teppanyaki thing where I flip the egg.
If you get a chef's hat, I'll beat your ass. You're not wearing a fucking chef's hat. One of those tall ones.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not going to be pretty. You ain't going to wear it long.
So anyway,
what else did you do? You said something about a barbecue.
So we headed
contest.
out. Yeah, I headed out. Of course, the weather looked like it was going to be kind of miserable, and so my fair weather barbecue mate, Sherry, she had long decided when it looked like the weather wasn't going to be the best that she was going to stay home. Plus, we had old Luke Darnell from Old Virginia Smoke. He had cooked the barbecue contest the week before when we were moving. So he came down, spent the week. We did a lot of testing, food testing and that type stuff. And then, so he needed a pit to cook on. So I said, well, you can cook on my Jambo. I'm just going to cook on a drum. He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've always wanted to do the 1 can challenge just as a personal challenge. And most of these guys, that cook on Gateway drums or similar drums, they have one for each category. They have one for chicken, one for ribs, one for
So they're
pork,
cooking on 4.
Brisket.
Cooking on 4.
They're cooking on 4. Some are cooking on 3. Some are cooking on 4. But I'm like, why do you need to cook on 4? I want to try and cook on 1. So I had this challenge. And so I signed up for the contest like on Monday. And I got to thinking, I could really fuck this thing up and get last place. I'm not putting Smokey D's name on it. So I always had a team name. I always had a team name I wanted to use that was called With a Perfect 180. Right?
Okay.
And so, and a 180, of course, in the barbecue world is a perfect score.
Right.
Well, so when you get announced at a barbecue contest and they announce something, I wanted to get like 7th place in chicken with a perfect 180.
Oh, Jesus.
And then everybody going, oh, shit, I got
What
6. I got a 182. No, you didn't. So anyway, it was kind of fun. I just found out this morning that actually two guys up in Michigan had used that team name in a Florida contest a few weeks before. I didn't know that. I thought I was being original, but evidently I copied the name. Oh well.
Oh well.
They didn't win. They didn't win either.
So,
but anyway, so it was kind of one of those last minute. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. I had some recipes. I was going to cook two contests, one with one guy, and then I was going to cook another contest. And we went through what we called the Teddy Camp rules, where if you're going to cook a contest with somebody and they have their recipes and you have your recipes, you kind of sit down and you blend the two recipes together so that it's everybody cooks all four meats together, and it's not just, let's say, Randy, you and I are cooking together, and I say, hey, Randy, I'm going to cook chicken, and you cook ribs, and I'll cook pork, and you cook brisket.
Right.
Well, if you fuck up in brisket, then we're all pissed off at Randy, right?
Right.
Well, if we blend the ingredients together and cook as one and everybody contributes, then it's never anybody's fault when you fuck up.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we've been doing that with Teddy Camp Barbecue for quite some time. And so I had some Teddy Camp Barbecue, and then I had T-Rex and the Goat. We were going to cook on that contest out in Arizona, except for our flight got canceled due to the snowstorm and all that other bullshit a few weeks ago. So ended up, I had those recipes. I had Teddy Camp recipes. I had my own recipes. So I just printed off all the recipes and threw some shit in a box, and off I went to the contest. Had no clue what I was going to cook. Everything was going to be a game time decision.
Right.
I mean, even to the point that I'm Thursday night, I'm at the grocery store going, am I going to cook thighs, or I'm going to cook wings, or am I going to cook legs, or whatever. So it was I knew I had a brisket. I had some pork and ribs. But yeah, everything was kind of a game time decision. Even as I was cooking, I was kind of making changes.
Sure. Well, that's usually kind of the best ones that run, being flexible.
Well, I had nothing to lose.
Exactly.
I had nothing to lose. I had a team name that didn't identify me, even though everybody quickly found out and got a good laugh about with a perfect 180. So
who it was. So how many teams were up there?
Well, they said there was going to be 33. Ended up only being 29 that actually scored in the contest. So,
and where was it located at, Darren? Where was it located?
It was up in Haines City, Florida, which it was called the Ribs on the Ridge. Haines City, Florida, which is kind of a distant suburb of Orlando. We were about 15 miles, 20 miles from Orlando. We were close enough to Orlando to feel the Orlando traffic.
Okay.
But far enough away, we felt like there was a bunch of rednecks in their big trucks and whatever, that we were out in the Florida countryside.
Sure.
Kind of like Jacksonville. Kind of like Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
exactly.
That's the way Florida is. You have your metropolitans, and then you got your rednecks.
Yeah.
And I like redneck country. There's nothing against rednecks. I love redneck country in Florida. I like last night I pulled up to a stoplight, and here's a guy in a truck next to me, and I'm in the Bronco, and I could see underneath his truck. That's how high it was stacked up.
Oh shit.
I could have, if it wasn't for the drive shaft, I could have drove underneath his truck.
That's insane. It's just
wow.
At some
you're from Polk County, Florida. If you
Polk County, that's even funny.
Yeah.
So what was your what was your thought pattern going into this?
Well, timing was going to be everything. Okay, so I borrowed a Gateway drum. Now Luke had brought me down. A team had loaned me their drum. Cooters and Smoke had loaned me a drum to kind of do a little practice cook on during the week. Well, we were so busy. We did cook one day, and all we did was we took a pork butt and cut it in half just to emulate having some mass, and we had a brisket point. And we did a little practice cook. And the practice cook, it was relatively easy. I was surprised. Never, I can't say I've never cooked on a Gateway drum because I've always kind of finished my chicken on one.
Right.
But I've never really cooked any big meats on one. I've only watched a guy cook ribs. Somebody bought one, a friend of a friend, and bought one. And I said, oh, we can cook some ribs. Had no clue what I was doing, but pretended like I did. And we cooked ribs, and they were really good. But I had never cooked any myself. And you know me, I don't normally practice. So I was going into this thing like blind.
And hey, let me ask, you cooked everything hot and fast.
I cooked everything extremely hot, extremely fast.
Okay. All right. It wasn't an overnight cook or anything like that.
No, and so I got the idea. Drew Davis from Razor X Barbecue down in Arkansas, he had cooked on one drum, and Drew is a hell of a cook. He cooks on a Jambo too, but he went somewhere and cooked on one Jambo or on one Gateway drum, and he won the barbecue contest.
Wow.
And ever since I heard about that, I wanted to be part of it, right? I wanted to figure that out, because you talk about carry all this shit around, and I've got a Jambo sitting here in the garage in Florida that gets used. I mean, it got used 3 times this year, none of by myself, right? And I just soon have a golf cart that I can go to the bar with sitting there rather than this damn Jambo. Well, if I can figure out this one can challenge, then I can just put one Gateway drum in the garage and just put a little carrier on the back of the Bronco, and off I go. Got a tent and off I go. So just kind of simplifying my setup.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to accomplish. So Drew had shared his notes with me about his timeline, and his timeline started at like 3:00 in the morning. And I'm like, there is no way. I'm not getting up at 3:00 in the morning to cook barbecue. I mean, I get up early anyway, but I was like, no, I'm just going to have to cook a little hotter and a little faster.
Right.
So I had this mindset that if I could cook my pork and brisket at the same time. Okay. Now, most time people that run Gateway drums, if they're cooking their brisket, they have a water pan sitting on a shelf or right on top of the fire that is protecting the meat from the direct coals. And what they do is they spin it. So they'll run it 20 minutes or a half hour direct over the coals. And then when it really starts to juice and really throw a lot of smoke, they'll flip it around and cook it over that water pan.
Okay.
And they're just constantly doing that. Well, how am I going to do that with pork? And I was worried about having the pork over the flame. So I'm like, I'm going to run 2 water pans. So they're just not going to be as big. I didn't want to snuff out the fire. So I ran 2 small water pans on a bottom shelf over the fire. And it seemed to work. That way I could keep the meat over the water pans at all times unless I wanted to. Then there was room in the middle that if I wanted to get some char flavor, then I could just move stuff to the center or to the outside and get that char flavor. So that's where I started, So, from a timing standpoint, we weren't going to get up till 4:30 in the morning. I was staying in a Airbnb RV in a guy's yard with Luke, and those that know Luke, he's 6'5" and 350 pounds. So anytime Luke decided he wanted to roll over in bed, I rolled over with him because I was on the couch that was laid down. And so every time he rolled over, I instantly rolled over too. I don't think there was any stabilizer jacks down at all. It was just a hell of a, so very little sleep that we got. Anytime I moved, he moved. Anytime he moved. It was an RV. We found an Airbnb, and all it was just a damn RV trailer. It was like a 28-foot trailer, and it had a bedroom in the back with a queen bed and a bathroom, and then it had 2 bunk beds, 4 beds in the front of it.
Oh, okay.
But they were only about 5 foot long, so that didn't work very well.
Right.
And so I looked at the couch and I said, Luke, I bet you this folds down. I can sleep anywhere. I still have that metal bar from that couch impaled in my back. I mean, here I am 2 days later, and oh my God, you talk about the worst night's sleep in the world. So anyway, we were going to get up at 4:30 and go over there, 4:15, go over there, light the fire at 4:30 and whatever. Now, we were up ahead of time. But so anyway, we lit the can. I lit the can. He lit the Jambo. I lit the can at 4:30, and I was able to get that pork and brisket on about 5:15 in the morning, and we're moving. I mean, I'm cooking. I mean, I'm just looking back at my notes, and I mean, I put my pork and brisket on at 5:15. I wrapped my pork after an hour, or my brisket after an hour, and I wrapped my pork after an hour and 15 minutes. And so
you'd got enough color. You'd got enough color and stuff in there, and bark that quick.
Oh yeah, and so that brisket was off the smoker by 7:30. I mean, I put it on at 5:15. Yeah, so I mean, in 2 hours and 15 minutes, I cooked that brisket. I mean,
how hot were you cooking?
The brisket. I mean, I was 300 to 325 on the gauge, which I think was probably 350 on the top shelf.
Right.
So, but everything was going so smooth because I knew my target was I needed to put ribs on at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Now, I had taken a little small 30-gallon drum with me. Okay. And I was doing everything I could not to light that drum. But if that pork and brisket were on, I knew I was going to have to light it to start cooking my ribs. Otherwise, I was going to be too late for my ribs. But as I was checking temperatures, about 7:15, I'm like, this shit's going to get done. I'm like, Luke, what do you think? He goes, just light the drum. And I said, Luke, no, I'm not going to light the drum. I'm just going to take a chance. If they're not done, I'm going to stand the ribs on end against the brisket and the foil and just start cooking them. They may not look the best, but I'm going to start cooking them that way.
Right.
But sure enough, 7:30 and 7:45, all that stuff was off. Well, of course,
incredible.
I'm not saying we didn't have challenges or I didn't have challenges because then I go to take the meat off, right? And then I look over and here's my Cambro. Well, I'd kept all my meat in the Cambro the night before, so I had a big old block of ice in the top of it. And I still had my chicken in there. And that Cambro was cold as shit. Well, I didn't have any way to warm up that Cambro. I didn't have a burner to put hot water in it. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not using that. I guess I'll use Sherry's Bronco as my warming cabinet.
Right.
So I opened up the back of the Bronco, got a moving blanket, put the brisket and pork in there and covered it up with towels and just forgot about it. And then I got the ribs out. And so as you can see, I'm taking advice from everybody here. I got Chris Schaefer from Heavy Smoke. He ended up winning the contest yesterday. He cooks on Gateway drums. There was Jerry Stephenson out of North Carolina. He cooks on drums. And so every time somebody walked by, I'd ask them a question. Hey, how do you think I should do this? What's a feller got to do?
What's a feller got to do?
What's a feller got to do as far as cooking stuff? So anyway, I mean, I was like, how do you wrap your ribs? Because I don't know. I'm used to wrapping them on the Jambo, but I'm not used to cooking shit over a hot can. And I didn't want to burn the shit out of stuff. And so I'm just soaking up all these pieces of advice. I'm just asking stupid questions.
Right.
I'm probably one of the winningest guys in barbecue, but I acted like it was my first time.
I was going to say,
I was just asking.
It sounded like it was like,
yeah. But the great thing about it is people are like, oh yeah, just do this and wrap your ribs this way and do whatever. I mean, everybody was just walking me through because everybody wanted to see me get a call. It was just one of those things. And, it was probably one of the easiest cooks I've ever had.
Really?
I mean, that Gateway drum,
yeah.
I didn't have to do anything.
Now,
once it got set in, all I was to have to what?
Did you have to reload your charcoal during the cook?
No, but we'll get to that later in the segment here because the answer is should have.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But we won't jump ahead. But
okay.
So anyway, I cooked. But in overall, to start off with, I cooked one brisket flat. Now everybody and their brother told me to trim all the fat off that brisket. It was to make it cook faster. I was nervous as shit about doing that. I like having some fat on the bottom of that brisket flat. But I had this, I don't know, Luke called it a postage stamp. He goes, that's a nice postage stamp you got there. As far as a brisket, I had it trimmed down pretty good, probably more than normal, and it didn't have any fat on it. And then I had 3 pork butts that the 3 of them combined together didn't weigh, I bet you it didn't weigh 8 pounds total.
Mm-hmm. Really?
It was pretty much the money muscle and a little bit behind it. So they were all through. And the reason everything was trimmed so small was I had these small water pans, and I was trying to keep the meat over the water pan. Because I knew if I got the meat outside the water pan, I was going to probably char that meat.
Right.
So I was flipping stuff and moving stuff around, trying to, when you're cooking on that drum, you're constantly, every 20 minutes or every half hour, you're rotating that meat around. Just because if the drum's not cooking even from one side to another, you're trying to get it. But, I got the brisket and pork off, got the ribs on. The ribs were moving fast. And I'm like, holy shit. Now, I was watching a Facebook Live the night before, a bunch of guys from Getting Basted and Shake and Bake, and Luke was up there too. They were up at Proud Souls in Orlando, and they were doing a live video and cooking stuff. Well, Schaefer had cooked a rack of ribs in an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
And it was like they said they were good, but they tightened up a lot. If you cook something that quick, you really got to let it rest. So I knew I could get it done if I had to, but I didn't want that drum to get too hot either. So I tried to stay in that 300, 325. I didn't fuck with it. I just let it run. And we just let it run. And so I got the ribs on. I think I wrapped them. I don't know. Let me look at my notes here. I put the ribs went on at 8 o'clock, 15 minutes after the pork came on. I rotated those. I wrapped them at 9:10. So an hour and 10 minutes I was wrapping ribs.
Right.
And then they came off at 9:55.
So by 10 o'clock you were done with those. 2 hours you cooked the ribs.
In 2 hours I cooked the ribs. Yep. A little under 2 hours I'd cooked the ribs. So I put them in a pan and I threw them in the back of the Bronco warmer.
Fellas got to do what he's got to do. That's one thing
that fellers got to do what a guy's got to do, right? So anyway, then came chicken. Well, I was torn on chicken because I had never really – I'd finished my chicken on a can, and there's plenty of when I used to just cook the chicken on the Jambo and then I would finish it on the can to get a little char on the bottom. I had never cooked chicken, I don't think. Maybe I have once from A to Z. Right. Well, nonetheless, I'm sitting at the grocery store going, what am I going to cook? What's going to be? I don't want to scrape any skin on this chicken. Hell, I'm going to cook chicken. I was down between legs and wings.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I'm just going to cook chicken legs. So I grabbed chicken legs and I trimmed them up, and I did I cooked about 11 of them. I cooked 11 chicken legs, and I'm like, I'm just going to do this. Well, old Jerry Stephenson out of North Carolina come by, and because I asked Luke, I said, you ever cook legs on this thing? He goes, no. And this is Saturday morning, about an hour before legs are going to go on. You ever cook legs on this? And he goes, no. He said, but Jerry cooks them all the time. I said, get his ass over here. So Jerry came over and he goes, Darren, don't get that cooker down. Don't have that cooker try and cook those eggs at 250 to 275.
Right.
Like, really? And he goes, yeah. He said, I don't want the skin pulling back on them. Just try and do it. He said, put them on at 10 or 10:15 and just cook them, just kind of cook them slow. So that's what I did. I dialed back the cooker to
it throttled back pretty easy.
It throttled right away. I mean, especially when you put cold meat on it. So if you throttle it down, put the cold meat on, then it doesn't go back up like it was supposed to. So it's very easy that way. I was super impressed by the drum. I could see why a lot of people cook on them because they're easy to cook on. I mean, they're like idiot proof. I mean, and just managing one fire. I'm not sure why these guys manage 4 fires. I just don't understand. I mean, I could easily do a contest in 2 with my eyes closed. I could easily do a contest knowing that I could cook brisket and pork at the same time and ribs and chicken at the same time.
Have the other one the other place.
Yeah.
Have that on there, and then you got your other one for ribs and chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but, and you think about fires, I I was over at Heavy Smoke, Chris, talking to him, and all of a sudden I look at him, he goes, "Oh, fuck." I said, "What?" And he goes, "Well, ribs are supposed to go on." "Yep. I haven't lit my rib can yet."
Oops.
Well, better light the rib can. So he gets some starter out and he starts it, and then he goes and gets his leaf blower, and he just puts that leaf blower on, gets a roaring fire in about 10, 15 minutes, throttles her down, throws his ribs on, and off he goes.
I'll be damned.
It's just one of those things that, most people have this timeline that they have to follow. When you're cooking on a drum like that, I don't think there's any timeline at all.
Really?
I think it's when shit looks good, wrap it up. When it's done, take it off.
Huh.
Throw it in the back of the Bronco.
That's interesting.
Throw it in the back of the Bronco. So I was cooking legs, and Jerry had told me, he says, try and get them legs up to about 202, 204. I'm like, okay. So I got the legs, they were looking really good. I mean, they were really looking good. And I'm like, well, I think I'll wrap them, so I wrapped them up, put them in a pan, put them in a butter bath, put them back on. I poked holes in the foil so it didn't steam really hard on me.
Right.
And put them back on and just kind of let them go. And I checked them after about half hour, and now I'm starting to get pretty close on time. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm going to get to 204, but I got to 198. And then I said, abort mission. We got to get shit done. So I took them off and dried them out just a little bit on the smoker for, get that butter off of them.
Right.
And then I sauced them and put them back on the smoker for about 5 minutes and threw them some bitches in the box. Well, I'm a quarter mile from turn in.
Oh, shit.
I skipped the cook's meeting like I normally do because Luke and I were hungry, so we went to dinner. And so I'm like, hey, I'm walking around right before turning. I'm going, hey, where do we turn in at? And they're like,
shit.
Well, you see that building over there? Yeah. Well, it's not that one. It's the one past it. Quarter mile uphill.
Holy fuck.
No. Uphill?
Uphill. And Darren didn't bring any tennis shoes. He's in his Hey Dudes.
Yikes.
Yikes is right.
So they're like, well, do we need to get you a runner? And I'm like, nope. Part of the deal. It's really part of the challenge is to do this all by myself. Right. So I did it. But I thought I better get early on that chicken. So I got early at chicken. I was sitting at the table about 3 minutes before turn-in opened because I knew I had to get back and do ribs. So chicken turn-in, chicken was great. I mean, I tried it and a little bit salty, but man, I had tried a whole new brine injection, everything. I'd never tried any of this shit before. I even borrowed rub off somebody else going, hey, that looks pretty good on your chicken. Here, let me borrow that shake.
God damn, Darren.
So, and the ribs turned out okay. I think I should have maybe seasoned them again a little bit, but I mean, they were fine. Maybe even a little overdone when I turned them in. I had one rack that was damn near perfect and one that was a little overdone. Well, I could only get about 5 bones out of that one rack. So I turned in 5 bones and I turned 1 bone in out of the kind of the overdone rack. So I think we ended up getting 15th in ribs, or kind of middle of the pack. And I wasn't expecting much in ribs. I knew the chicken was really good, but the ribs, I was like, meh. And then we get to pork. So right before, I was worried about cooking that brisket and pork so fast that things would tighten up. Especially it was cooler weather. It was 65 degrees outside. So I'm like, I better go check that pork and brisket. So right when I was getting ready to turn in ribs, I opened the Bronco Cambro up and I go to check it, and that pork's at 98 degrees.
Holy
and I'm
fuck.
like, holy fuck, I'm fucked. And then I probed the brisket, and it was just a little bit higher. It was like at 100. I mean, unsafe holding temperatures by Randy's standard, but it hadn't been there long enough to be unsafe yet. And I'm holy crap, this is not going to be good. So I threw the pork back on the cooker, just in the foil, threw it in the pan, threw it back on the cooker, and off I went to turn in my ribs. Came back, and the pork was up to 120, and I'm like, okay, I need to think of something different here. So I got a pan out. I dumped all the yazoo off of it, strained the grease from it, And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to slice this pork cold, or it wasn't cold, but it was damn near room temperature or a little bit better.
Tepid.
But I'm going to put that au jus on the cooker and just get it hot as shit. And I'm going to cook that cold pork in that au jus to finish it off.
Sliced.
And bring it back up. Okay. Bring it back up to temperature, right?
But sliced. You're cooking it sliced.
So I go to do that, and my gateway's out of fire.
Holy fuck.
And I got these water pans underneath there. So I've got a top rack. I've got a bottom rack. And you can't it's not like you can just add charcoal without disassembling everything.
The whole project.
And this is at the beginning of pork turn-in. I mean, this is like, what? We turned in ribs at 1. So this is about 105, 110. I'm like, what's a feller going to do here? As I thought about my Randy Twyford. But then I put on my thinking hat, and I took all the stuff off, and I had a little bit of charcoal left I threw the bag of charcoal away, but I had some charcoal left in the little can. So I drizzled maybe a pound or 2 of lump charcoal, and I'm like, that ain't going to catch on fast enough. I said, hey, look, you done with your Jambo? And he goes, yeah, why? And I said, I'll be right over. So I went over to my Jambo that he was borrowing. I grabbed the dustpan, and I shoved it, and there was just enough embers in the bottom of it. Right. And I grabbed it and ran across to my side and sprinkled those embers on top. And I just left the lid off the drum so it would get smoking hot real quick. And about 5 minutes, that sumbitch was hot. Really? So I put on my pork au jus and just got it just straight over the fire. I'm like, we're just going to boil the shit out of it, because I didn't have a hot plate. I was cooking out of a tent.
Right.
So I got it. I'm like, well, I'm just going to start slicing this pork. So I'm slicing this pork, and I never taste my pork, ever. When I took a bite out of the end, I'm like, son of a bitch, this is great. I mean, it was really good pork. Right. I'm like, how am I going to do this? So I sliced it up, and I just had 3 little money mussels. That's all I had. So I sliced up the 3 money mussels, and then when it come time to about 5 minutes before I turned in, I went and got that au jus off. I dunked them in there, covered them up, and threw it back on the cooker. And I was just going to steam the piss out of them and just boil them money mussels in there. And we took it out. I'm telling you, I say we, me, myself, and I.
Right.
Yeah.
It may have been the best damn pork I've turned in a year.
Really?
I mean, it was crazy. My box looked fucking great. I mean, it was crazy. I used every little bit. I just had the little ends of the pork. That's all I had left. I turned in everything. I turned in 15 money mussels.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, is there something to be said for this? Should I be cooking my pork on Friday and cooling it down and then just saving the au jus and heating it up and slicing it cold after you get done with ribs, slicing it cold, have that au jus hot and cooking that pork?
Yeah.
Because some of the pork came off at different temperatures, but once it was cooled down and I sliced it, it all felt the same.
I bet it did. I sliced nice, didn't it?
Oh, it sliced great. So that was kind of a last minute oh fuck, but got it turned in. You know, I had plenty of time. So then I came back and I'd thrown the brisket on. As soon as I got the pork off, I threw the brisket on, trying to get it. I'm like,
get it heated up.
Well, guess we're going to do the same thing here. You know, I got time to get this brisket warmed back up. So I dumped the au jus, and I only had about a half a cup of au jus. I'm like, son of a bitch. Here we go again. How am I going to boil this in a half a cup of au jus? So I knew I had a can of beef consomme in the toolbox. Didn't have a can opener. Found it later, but I ran across to the Luke and, hey, you got a can opener? So I opened my can of consomme, dumped it in there, threw it on the can, got it boiling. I mean, I had that can screaming about 450 degrees then. Heated that up, sliced the brisket halfway cold, put the whole thing in there. I mean, the problem was I filled too much, so I kind of rubbed all the rub off the top of the brisket. That was probably my one mistake of the day. I had plenty of mistakes. I just overcame.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
I had plenty of mistakes, plenty of trials and tribulations. But so I sliced that brisket and put it in the au jus and whatever, and it really had pretty decent flavor. It wasn't my normal brisket because I'm used to cooking brisket, on a wood-fired pit, not on charcoal.
Right.
And it wasn't fine. But, I tasted a piece of it this morning just to see what it tasted like. It tasted pretty damn good. It probably needed a little bit more salt. But I turned it in. I mean, everything worked out. I had about 15 seconds
How was
left
the
to
pull
get
and
my
everything on
brisket
it, Darren? On that brisket,
it was actually really. It wasn't very good when I at first, but after I heated up, it was amazing.
Really?
It kind of was the reverse of the old time days, Randy. Remember when Randy all of a sudden at 9 o'clock, you knew he was going to win brisket, so at 9 o'clock in the morning you go, "Hey, big guy, ice," because he'd overcooked the shit out of his brisket, and I taught him how to just ice it down, get it iced down, then warm it back up, and for some reason there's something to that.
I think so. It worked for us.
I know, and trust me, I was thinking of you when I was doing that. I was thinking of you when I was doing it, but everything I got turned in had about 15 seconds to spare on brisket.
Oh boy!
And I was like up that hill for the fourth time, and it was challenging. Wore a blister on my foot, but then I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm not sticking around for awards. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't stay around
that's
for
kind
awards?
That's what I know. I mean, it's like
he hardly does.
I could be home by 5 o'clock, or I could be sitting with awards getting over at 5 o'clock, facing a 2.5-hour drive.
Yeah. Well, don't blame me.
So we had a couple, Mike and Brenda Thompson. They used to have a barbecue team up in Minnesota. She runs a food truck, and they happen to be down there and walk around. They're going, "You need help?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't need help." Well, when they got done, they're like, "Well, we know you need help cleaning up. We'll help you clean up." So they did a good job of helping me clean up and packing everything in the Bronco and getting everything. And then I hooked onto the Jambo for Luke and drove back home and watched it on Facebook Live, watched awards or listened to it on Facebook Live in the car. And so we get to awards and, they started calling chicken. And in Florida, they do that fucked up thing. I just hate it. Where they call all 10 teams to the stage.
Oh,
and then they start dismissing them. So they're going in no particular order, and they start call. Well, I was in the top 10. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. So I'm listening, and they call 10th, and that person sits down, call 9th, and whatever. And so that's Luke is sitting next to the camera that's recording, and all of a sudden they get to. It's getting down to 4th place and 3rd place, and he's live on Facebook. His friends are live, and he's on the live going, "You got to be fucking kidding me! You got to be fucking kidding me!" First of all, here's Darren cooking on a can, had never cooked legs on a can, had only cooked legs once in his life, I think, maybe twice. And so then they announced first place in chicken with a perfect 180, which was my team name. Right. But then they all had to announce with a perfect 180. So it was
you got a 180 in chicken
with a perfect 180 with a perfect 180. Damn. So I got a perfect score in chicken. And the crowd was going crazy. I mean, everybody was hooting and hollering. I mean, everybody was rooting for me just because it was just a challenge.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. And they're like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, it really wasn't hard. And maybe it's just my 20 years of experience in competition barbecue, but kind of the lesson comes out is don't worry about all the little details, because you know what, doesn't matter. You got to be lucky. You got to turn in good product. I thought I turned in pretty decent product. I was a little skeptical about the brisket. I was a little skeptical about the ribs, but we pulled one out of our ass. I think we got 15th in ribs. We got 18th in brisket, which was probably pretty well deserved, and 11th in pork, which I thought the pork maybe could have scored a little better. But out of 29 teams, I just wanted to be in the game. I just wanted to hear my name called. Yeah. That was the ultimate goal. I wanted to know if I could do it. But then when they called the top 10 up, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm in the top 10. I'm like, I got to be 10th, and then I got to be 9th. And they got down, they called me for 5th overall. So I think we pulled out a 694, 695.
Not bad.
But overall, lots of fun.
That's the main thing.
I can't wait. And I've been a Jambo guy for years, and cooking on my Jambo's been everything. I tell you, cooking on a gateway is a hell of a lot easier. You don't have to get up every
really?
35 minutes and I mean, the Jambo is a well-oiled machine. Don't get me wrong, but just it stretches that entire process out.
Oh,
it's like I'm taking my ribs off. I'm taking my ribs off, and I'm taking my ribs off, and some people are putting theirs on.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so it was just a whole different style of cooking, and it made me think about, okay, how are we going to do this challenge? I mean, if you're going remotely, it's hard to fly in and borrow 4 drums.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
From anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hellaciously easy to say, hey, I got an extra drum.
Yeah.
Just bring an extra drum for me. And so, all you need is really a pop-up tent, a couple tables, maybe even one table. You need the Bronco warmer. That's the one thing I probably need to pay more attention to.
Sounds like the Bronco warmer didn't really work.
No, I need to rethink the whole Bronco warmer.
Yeah, so I don't think you need a Bronco warmer. Maybe just an extra Canberra would be good.
Or just bring a cooler.
Yeah, that as well.
Well, yeah, but I'm telling you, the Bronco was packed.
I
thought I was going to have to stuff shit on top of the ceiling, because I also had a toolbox that was left with the Jambo that I had to take back home. And I'm like, where in the hell am I going? We're playing Jenga trying to get this goddamn thing in there.
Oh, I can only imagine.
It was oh God, it was a mess. And I'm like, I'm going to get home and I'm going to get my ass chewed, because this Bronco's going to smell like barbecue.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, it's only got 3,000 miles on it.
Oops.
And it's got scratches in the top of it from where the can. She hasn't noticed those yet, but so this morning I cleaned out. I got home and I'm like, I'm tired. I'm just cleaning this out in the morning. So we were out in the rain this morning, cleaned up, and she goes, wow, Bronco looks in pretty good shape. Better than I thought it would be. I'm like, oh, sweet.
There you go.
Just don't look too closely.
Yeah.
Huh?
Just don't look too closely.
Yeah. So no, we got her all done. It was. I'll be doing that again.
I was going to ask you. Do you think you'll do it again?
I'm gonna have I think I'm going to sponsor a 4-category cook-off, and everybody can just bring one drum. Right. And let's just see who can cook on these damn things.
That'd be interesting to see.
Fun. Yeah. Nice little challenge.
But overall, I still had plenty of time to sit in the chair like I normally do.
Really?
People look over and going, aren't you just running around? I'm like, no, why? I don't have to do anything for like 12 minutes. I did have to set some timers. I'm not used to that.
Right.
I'm not used to setting a timer on my phone for anything. I just have this kind of sense of when the Jambo needs a log, or a sense when something needs done.
You've cooked on it so much.
I don't follow a timeline. I have a timeline in my head, but I've done it on it so much that I really don't pay any attention. I just like, oh, must need a log. But with this, I'm like, I better set some timers. So I probably set 10 or 15 timers yesterday morning about.
What would you change? What would you do different?
Yeah. Yeah, what would you do differently? That's a good question, Randy.
Of course, I'd find something. I'd probably, in the morning, as soon as I'd get that Cambro emptied out, so I actually had a Cambro to hot hold stuff.
Right.
That's good.
I think, when you cook on a can, they tend to go by feel for ending temperature, the feel of the probe versus an exact temperature. Because if you cook a lot hotter, then it's going to finish hotter. Just not knowing, I could feel that it was tender, but it was cooked so quick that I thought maybe it would tighten up.
Right.
And both the big meats did. The ribs didn't, which surprised me a little bit.
Yeah.
I was worried about them tighten up when I cooked them in 2 hours. I'm like, oh, these are going to tighten up. So instead of letting them air out like I normally would, I just wrapped them in foil, which made them cook a little bit longer. I probably shouldn't have done that. But it's just, I think I have the timeline now, but it was so close. I mean, when I had 5 minutes from the time my ribs come off to chicken, it's not too close, but it's too close knowing that I was in Florida at sea level. And when you're at sea level, things always cook quick. So to take that same timeline in Iowa, probably not going to work very well. Take that timeline when it's 35 degrees outside, probably not going to work very well. And so can we still do it on one drum? Yeah. I think I need to design kind of a rib rack so that if pork and brisket are still on, that I can still kind of turn my ribs sideways and get them on the pit at least for a while until I get that stuff off, and then I can lay them down. I think I could make that happen. Other than that, I mean, chances are your pork and brisket's going to be off by the time chicken needs to go on. So that's the only critical thing, is being able to have 3 meats on the cooker at once, with get your pork and brisket off. And I'd probably leave some fat on my brisket. I'd probably spend a little more, instead of rolling over the pan all the time, I'd probably put a little bit more over the coals for just a little bit more flavor. But
interesting.
Other than that, it was all.
Are you going to do this again?
It was fun. I am.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out. There's a contest down here in Florida in a couple weeks, and I'm trying to figure out whether I'm going to, fly back down here, and whether I'd have to borrow a drum, if somebody will loan me a drum, or am I going to just pull the Jambo and do it the old-fashioned way? I don't know.
Right.
Seems like drums are scoring. People like that drum food. I don't like the taste of it, but people like that. Judges seem to like that drum food. So
why don't you?
I'm
like
up for the challenge. It's almost like steaky. I don't like flame broiled steak. That charry taste. That
right.
I just don't. I don't care for that. Now I love pork steak that way.
Right.
But I don't like a regular beef steak or whatever that way. It's just too much flavor, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I would agree with you. It is kind of has a couple of different layers of flavor in there.
Yeah, but overall, yeah, I look forward to doing it again. Of course, I don't practice, so I'm not going to practice it at home. But somebody asked me yesterday, "Are you going to do this in Altoona?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe, never know." But I think it's a great remote way to go in. I think I need to design my rib holder that'll fit in a suitcase or something that I can buy at Ace Hardware. Getting the right size pans. I had bought these drywall mud pans thinking they were going to be the best thing ever. That they're long, that I can keep stuff off the fire.
I know what you're talking about.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, until I bought the 16-inch ones, and now they're propping up my computer to make it higher, because that's the only thing they're good for, because they leak. They wouldn't hold water. I went to put water in them, and the water's leaking.
Yikes.
I'm like, what the hell?
Damn.
Yeah. So, anyway, I had to use.
So, what kind of pans did you use to put in there?
Oh, they were weren't. Most of the time, guys just use a foil half pan and put water in it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go smaller than that, because if you put 2 half pans, it snuffs out most of the fire. So I needed some more room. So I did some pans that were probably, I don't know, 6x9 or something like that. 7x9. They were just a little smaller pan. I think I could design some sort of. That's where my mind went. Is I'm going to have a machine shop design me a 3-4 place water pan that designed for the gateway drum. You'd be kind of like the next grill grate.
Right. There you go.
Randy, we could make millions.
Oh, jeez.
I'm game.
Yeah. So overall fun experience. I did not to change the subject totally, but one of the things that's on my mind, have you seen, because that's all to talk about competition, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we got to talk about business. Got to talk about business a little bit.
Okay.
Have either of you experienced any of these new restaurants that are running? We talked about the Hyper Energy before, I think, where they're doing the double drive-through, kind of like the little coffee stands.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you guys seen that in any other food concepts?
What do you mean, the double drive-through?
So drive-through on a tall, skinny building not a tall, skinny building, but just a building that looks like it was just dropped on site with drive-throughs on both sides of it.
So I think there's a coffee shop in Des Moines that used to do that, the Twisted Bean.
Well, those
I think. So
7 brews, 7 cups or whatever, they do it.
Okay, so you come in and you go on both.
Right, so
Yeah, I haven't seen it in any other concepts outside.
Well,
of,
let me ask you this, Darren.
Shops.
Let me ask you this: Isn't they don't have 2 complete lines, but like a Chick-fil-A, and I know Portillo's they have 2 lines, but then they go down into one.
Yeah, same with most McDonald's nowadays.
Right, from an ordering standpoint, because the ordering is the longest process of it all. So, a comment about McDonald's. I went to get McDonald's the other day, and since we were moving, and it was right up the street, and we hadn't eaten, and we're just going to get something for breakfast. So I go to McDonald's, and I'm normally not that guy, but I did. And so as sorts, I get ready to order, and they're like, "Did you order on the app?" And I'm like, "No, I'm ordering. That's why I pulled up right here." Right.
Well, so now a lot of places offer like Panera, you can do drive-through pickup. I do that at a lot of places, actually. I used to do that at Cafe.
So I said, "No, please take my order." So I take my order. I pull up. I'm second in line, third in line. I get up, and they hand me my shit, and off I go. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be smarter. So then 2 days later, let's just get McDonald's again. Fuck, we don't know where any pans are or anything. So I went up to get a sandwich or burritos we were getting. And I'm like, I'm going to download that goddamn app. I'm going to go to the McDonald's app. And it was a pretty snazzy app. And so I download the app and I order it for my location. And it says I ordered it for curbside pickup. So I went to curbside pickup, and when you get there, it knows you're there, and it says press what spot you're in. I'm spot number 2, and we'll bring your order out to you. I'm watching all these people at the fucking drive-through, right? Go through, and I'm on the curbside app, and it took me 10 minutes to get my food.
Wow.
A lot of that, I think, has to do with runners, though, because of staffing. So, like, you know, in a McDonald's, like a lot of those bigger chains, everyone's stationed, right? So if they have runners that have to help.
But if you can't do it, then don't offer that.
Well, I mean.
So the point I was trying to make, so I was coming back across Redneck, Florida yesterday through these things. And I mean, you would not believe the restaurant nostalgia I saw along the way. I mean, there was restaurant, old drive-ins have been around for 40 years, 50 years. There was a donut shop called the Donut Man. People lined out the door, and that sign was older than it was older than I was. You could just tell they'd been lining them out the door for 50 years.
Right.
And so I came upon this Jimmy John's, and the Jimmy John's had a double drive-through. Now, I didn't go into it, but I just kind of noticed, I'm like, because I'm constantly looking for an ornery chicken concept to get that baby into a drive-through. Right. And that's one of the things on our list is to get one of those buildings and build that on a small parcel of land somewhere in a highly populated area that we could do this drive-through for the ornery chicken, because we think we could really make a go of it.
Oh, it's like Bebop's. That's
yep,
like
something like Bebop's, but so I did some investigating this morning. So Jimmy John's, they have a double drive-through. One drive-through is you go through this drive-through if you haven't placed an order. You go through this drive-through that if you've already placed an order, your DoorDash or whatever, so you're not waiting in line. If you've got the notification your order's ready, then go through this.
Yeah.
But then they also had a carry-out location on the front that you could go in. You couldn't place your order, but it just had lockers. And so when you placed an order online, you could, if you weren't in a car, you could just walk up. It would tell you, put this code in locker number 2. You'd open up and there was your meal.
That is interesting. I haven't seen that.
No, I haven't either.
I hadn't either.
That's kind of convenient.
And so it's all about convenience. So then I start researching, and shit, everybody and their brothers tried to do these drive-through pickup locations, right? Because everybody wants everybody's time. You know, back to our whole motto when we first started Smokey D's, people don't have a lot of time to eat. You got to be quick. You got to whatever. Yeah. I'm like, this takes it to a whole nother level if you can service it fast enough.
Yeah. Right. I don't go into anything anymore. I do. And if I can pick it up in the drive-thru, I'm not going to park my car. I go through the drive-thru for everything.
Well, you probably got your dog with you.
Hey man, I do most of the time.
Yeah, I know. That's
how I even do my I haven't been in a grocery store to buy groceries since COVID started. I've been doing drive up ever since.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes it's a hit. Sometimes it's a hit or miss.
Nobody's picking out my pork chop for me, and nobody's picking out my lettuce.
But I agree.
Whatever.
I agree.
I just need just your basic pack of chicken breasts. So I'm like, hey, get me the cheapest one. Sounds cool.
Oh, you can tell it to get you the cheapest one?
Well, it'll pick the cheapest one automatically.
Oh, it will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Didn't know that.
What about you, Randy? You an old-fashioned guy?
Yeah, I go in.
Yeah,
I go in mode. I don't like drive-throughs.
I walk every aisle too.
Oh, and I'm talking even.
I still walk every aisle.
I'm talking about even like restaurants and stuff. I don't do drive-throughs. The only thing I'll do drive-through with is getting a coffee. You know. And,
yeah. See, I like the convenience of it. I don't feel the need if I don't have to get out of my car. Why would I? You know.
I understand, but I'm kind of the opposite. I want to go in there and see how things are going. You know.
Yeah.
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 And then get frustrated.
And I think that's a generational thing.
Emma, are you one of those generational? If you got to pee, do you go to a convenience store? Do you buy something? If you go to a convenience store because you got to pee, do you stop and buy something?
No.
Oh, see, I buy something.
No matter how small
even if I got.
I mean, a lot of times,
even if I got 10 bottles of water, even if I got 10 bottles of water in the car, I'm going to buy an 11th, or I'm going to buy some.
I'm with you, Darren.
I'm going to go. I flushed your toilet. I'm going to reciprocate.
It probably ends up to where almost every time I do get something, but I don't go in there with the mindset of if I'm using this bathroom, I need to buy something.
I think that's probably a generational thing too.
Yeah, not me.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel
guilty.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
I do too.
If I don't need to spend my money, I won't. You know? So.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. That's interesting. So do you think for the Honor Chicken, you'd want to do a double drive-through? Would you have for the Honor Chicken, would you have it to where there's, you haven't placed an order, place an order here, you have curbside pickup, and you'd have the drive-through pickup, just to keep some of the similar structure?
I think you just give people options, because you almost have to have on that drive-through, because you're going to have people that don't follow the rules. They're going to place an order, and they're going to drive through, and their order's not going to be ready. Well, you need to get them out of line. So you need to be able to pull them off saying, hey, go over here, right? And I'll run it right out just as soon as it's done, and we'll staff it right to be able to run it out when your shit's done, not wait 10 minutes.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I think we're turning into this world of electronics that customer service doesn't matter anymore, because you're going to be talking to an AI agent anyway.
I don't know if I agree. That far. But
you don't think so?
What'd you say, Emma?
No, I wouldn't go quite that far yet.
I think you're just going to be talking to an AI agent. I did listen to a podcast the other morning, because I'm kind of a podcast guy now when I'm walking.
Yeah.
And it's called First Bite. It's a restaurant industry one.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about Shake Shack. So Shake Shack,
right?
I've only ever been to the one in New York City. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But just they do burgers and shakes and stuff like that. And they put in some kiosk, and they're finding that the sales are higher ordering from the kiosk than ordering from the person at the front counter.
Really?
Because of shaming. So
interesting.
People tend to order more when they're just ordering it and it's going to get put in a bag, versus I'm staring at somebody going, well, I want a double cheeseburger and a French fry and a this and whatever. And they're going, hey, you fat ass, do you think you need all that?
Okay, that's an interesting theory, because in my head, like when I would order like that, like I would go to a kiosk. A lot of it is that I don't feel as rushed. So I'd have the chance to actually look over the menu and be like, okay, well, this sounds good and this sounds good. I could get both, instead of when you're actually ordering, you're you feel the pressure of not necessarily being fat shamed, but dude, can you hustle up? I have a line, like, let's get this going. And like, you can just feel the pressure from them being like, dude, I don't have time for this. And it's like, okay, well, here's a really quick order. But, and I like to order from like apps and kiosks and stuff like that, because if it gets messed up, there's a higher chance that it's my fault, you know? Like, I didn't order something right in my head instead.
Right.
Like, of them mishearing me and like not placing anything, I could be like,
oh,
well, I could order this. Or like having a stronger structure if it does get messed up, being like, well, I did order it this way, instead of having someone else be like, no, you didn't. Right. Like, I placed it this way. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot less there's a lower chance of error if I just order it directly.
See, I thought about calling McDonald's, because to me, McDonald's is really missing out by not doing it, not having the option of dress it like a Big Mac, right? Dress it like a Mac. So one of my favorite ordering things to do, and I don't eat at McDonald's a lot, only when other restaurants are closed or whatever, but I don't think a Big Mac is big enough, because they're fucking small now, right? They're so small now that they got a double Big Mac. But they do have a double Big Mac now.
I didn't know that.
But those are frozen patties, whatever. Yeah. That the quarter pounder with cheese is supposedly a fresh patty.
Really?
Right? And so it's a better quality burger. Okay?
Right.
Well, if I'm going to get a Big Mac, I like a double quarter pounder with cheese dressed like a Big Mac.
And they'll do that?
I want the lettuce, I want the slivered onions, and I want the Big Mac sauce on it. Well, you think about it. If I want a chicken sandwich, well, when I tell people that, they're going, "We don't understand." I'm like, just put the same fucking toppings you do on the Big Mac. Oh, okay. No onion, no this, add this, add this, add this. Well, think about it. A fish sandwich dressed like a Big Mac? Any hamburger, a chicken sandwich dressed like a Big Mac?
That fish
it's
sandwich
like every sandwich in the world right now.
Be good.
Do you think that sauce would be good on fish?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that sauce
not too far from tartar sauce.
Everything.
I guess that's fair. I mean, it'd be real good on chicken, that's for sure.
Well, I think so too. That's why I think they're like missing out on that entire market.
But isn't that? Aren't they one of those places though where it's kind of like these are your options, you know,
you would think so, but if that was their options, then they wouldn't take substitutions, and they do. And I understand that's what slows things down, right? Yeah. That's why, as I design restaurant, I like the idea of here's what you get. If you want to add something like our ornery chicken, our basic chick, right? People take the basic chick. It's chicken sandwich on a bun. You want cheese on it? Pick your size of cheese. Boom. You want lettuce on it? Just say boom. You want pickles on it, and you want this on it. You can put 50 toppings, and you'll turn that $6.99 chicken sandwich into a $15 sandwich. But it's exactly your way, right?
Okay.
Whose motto was that?
Yeah.
Whose motto was that? It's your way, right? Was that McDonald's?
No, that was Burger King.
So. Yeah, it's have it your way.
Have it your way.
Yeah, that's Burger King.
So why are their menus not just a la carte, pick what you want?
I haven't been to Burger King in a long time, but I feel like theirs is kind of set up that way. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that might be how it would slow things down for them. They can mass produce those Big Macs.
Well, they do, but they still make them to order.
Right.
Well,
remember the old days of McDonald's? McDonald's used to have the slide there that they used to have, 10 hamburgers and 10. They don't do any of that anymore. It's all made to order because they've gotten so efficient on the front side. So I think that may be a whole nother podcast.
Oh, really? And with your basic chick, I mean, when I worked there, don't you still have the issue of where people order, they don't understand that that's a build your own sandwich, so they would take like the ranch hand and completely deconstruct it or reconstruct it into what they want. So does that really solve your problem?
Well,
is my point. Like, does it actually?
I think here's the deal, because we've developed.
Are people still going to do it?
We've developed 10 different sandwiches, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you say, here, everything starts with a chicken. Build your own way. Here's some specialties. No substitutions. right?
Okay.
That's kind of the way maybe. I like the breakfast restaurant or whatever that I keep talking about. Here's our 2 or 3 special items, or build it your way. Now, you want a Denver omelet with no onions? Sorry, that's a no substitute. But build yourself one.
Yeah, because for myself, I just don't like fiddle fucking around with putting all this stuff on there. If I can see something that looks interesting to me, then I'm just going to get that over getting a hamburger and then putting the cheese on it and this and that. Just more. I know,
but
stuff.
Then somebody always wants to change that ingredient.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. I agree. But that's just me personally. I don't give a shit,
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like, I'm gonna if there's something on a sandwich that I'm like, oh, I don't like that, and there's something like another sandwich, I just order a different sandwich.
I agree.
Like, I hardly ever order anything without, like, can I get it with no onions or whatever?
Yeah.
I would just, and sometimes I'll even just I'll just order however it comes, and then I'll just take it off myself because it's faster. And I feel like because we all have some restaurant background, we know the process, like that everything, the whole point is to be efficient. So I think a lot of that is how I order is based off. I'm like, well, I can do this myself and save you the time. And then also you can get to the next customer faster.
Right.
So maybe we have
interesting.
Altered mindsets.
We just got to figure out how these people work, how their mind works. That's. I
think this would be a good episode.
That's secret.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do an episode like that. Because it is interesting to think about, like, different, in all of these fast food restaurants, they have such similar systems, but also they're all, like, just different enough that I feel like you get a different...
They're so different, right?
Yeah, like, you get a different experience at everyone.
But yeah, from
even
a restaurant
they have,
owner
like, the same structure.
From a restaurant owner experience, hell yes, I want you to order online because then it automatically integrates and prints to the line. I don't have to have somebody from a customer service standpoint. I don't have to handle payment. I don't have to handle anything. Of course I want that. But driving people to do that, they probably studied the shit out of it.
Like, do people have better experiences ordering online and I think it should be a generational thing. Because, like, obviously you're going to have your older people that are like, I would rather talk to somebody because they're more likely to mess up their order because they struggle with the app versus me where I'd just rather just, knock it out and then, go from there.
How do we come to the point where you have the universal app, right? Because
I think
the problem is everybody
closer to that.
But so you've got a McDonald's app and you got a Jimmy John's app and you got all these apps. So these people, instead of using one, they have all these different apps, and every app has its own different thing. So you got to sign up. You got to have your fucking email. Here's your phone number. You got to have a credit card, whatever.
I think that has to do with marketing, and then also, you think about it, DoorDash is essentially a universal app, but it's so much more expensive for restaurants. Because they also want a chunk of it. So, like, maybe really
it's more expensive for the consumer, not for the restaurant.
Well, yeah, but
in most cases.
Yeah.
I've never used DoorDash.
I think I used to be a DoorDash user. I lived off DoorDash for a while.
I don't use it much, but I do look at it once in a while here if we're in Florida or whatever. I mean, I've been tempted, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll just go get it. I'm not paying 30% more to.
Well, that's exactly right.
That's kind of where I'm at.
This might be the longest podcast episode ever.
I think it's interesting. I think it's such a good topic. We'll have to do an episode on it because it's interesting. Because a lot of it is generational, and then also just it's both. It's a generational and a business thing.
Because I think that's why at Smokey D's we struggle to get people to use an online app because they're an older crowd.
Demographic. Exactly. But then the Honoring Chicken, you're starting to get you have that younger demographic, so people are more prone to use the app. I mean, they still struggle with the whole curbside pickup aspect of it, but and like the whole fact that they can't just walk in. I mean, when I worked there, it's been months, but it's just an interesting thing.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
Well, looks like we have a topic idea for episode 45.
Sounds good.
So if you guys want to hear more about this, next week, tune in next week for part 2.
And we need a poll. Should McDonald's offer dressed like a Big Mac, the same toppings on any of their sandwiches? Yes or no?
Just
Let's
an
take
easy
that
deal.
poll. Let's put that poll up on
Okay,
the
so if you guys made it all the way to the end of this episode, leave a comment on YouTube, Instagram, send us a DM.
Or you could do a social media post.
Yeah, but that only lasts so
with
long.
A poll on it.
Okay. I'll make an Instagram post. Say once it'll come out Tuesday. Say if you guys listen to the episode.
What the?
Yeah, give people time to listen to the episode.
Oh, okay.
Make sure. And then I'll leave the post and say, hey. Yeah, okay. So be on the lookout for that.
And I'd watch this thing on YouTube because, damn, my lighting's good today.
Yeah, it is nice today. You look elegant today.
Nice. Usually I'm the one with, you're kind of shiny and you got your nice brick wall back there, Randy. I'm going to get us all cue the mic banners. We're going to get cue the mic banners.
Okay.
Marla said we ought to have a theme song.
Hang that up in my own.
What's that song? Another Brick in the Wall, All in all, it's another brick in the wall. She thinks that ought to be my theme song.
She's so pretty.
Yeah, she is. A nice girl.
All right. Well, this episode's getting quite long.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so
before we go off the deep end.
Yeah, that was episode 44 of Cue the Mic. Find us on social media at Cue the Mic Pod on Instagram, Twitter, or X, TikTok, and Threads. Look out for our poll that'll come out on. Well, this episode comes out on Monday, so it'll come out tomorrow, Tuesday. And yeah, find us on YouTube at Cue the Mic Podcast. Give this a watch so you can see Darren's great lighting. And yeah, and then tune in next week for our episode about restaurant
we want to talk about. Don't commit.
I think we have an idea. I want to talk about it. I'm committed. This is next week's topic. Emma's coming in with a topic. Yeah. Anyway, so that was Cue the Mic. We'll see you guys next week.
You want to start?
Boom. Done. Out of here.
We're out.
Finished.
We're out.